Hey, thanks everyone for joining. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. And thank you for joining the Suraksha Catalyst, the first webinar of 2026. Very happy to have you all here, and we have a powerful panel. And before we go to the webinar itself, I'll just take a quick minute to provide a brief overview of what Suraksha Catalyst is. If you're hearing for the first time, I hope it's not the first time because you registered, but still just taking 30 seconds. Suraksha Catalyst is an Indo-US cyber alliance. Focus is on bringing together the Indo-US founders of cybersecurity companies, innovators, cyber leaders, and the entire, the CISOs, practitioners, whether they are in US, wherever they are in the world. The objective is to build a robust ecosystem where we can collaborate, innovate, grow, and secure together. And that's what the webinar is also focused on today. And just quickly on, what is coming next in the pipeline. Of course, we will have the monthly webinar series, but in addition to this, we have these exciting events coming up. So we have a CISO Town Hall for members of Suraksha Catalyst. That is on February 6th, 2 p.m. Eastern. If you're not a member of Suraksha Catalyst, if you would like to become, please contact us at info@surakshacatalyst.com. And then, of course, we are very excited about our third event. This is the Indo-US Cybersecurity Conclave 2026 that will take place alongside RSA conference. And this will take place on March 25th. And an exciting, powerful lineup we have there. The agenda is all set. So please let us know if you would like to join us and contact us. With this, I will hand it over to Anurana, who has graciously agreed to be the moderator for the panel. Thank you so much, Anurana.
Thank you, Gurdeep. I hope everybody can hear me. And once again, on behalf of Suraksha Catalyst, a warm welcome to each one of you here. And I'm excited to represent here the West region of Suraksha Catalyst, as well as my colleagues here industry colleagues here on the panel, Pankaj, Rohan, and Vibhav. I'll turn it soon to them to introduce themselves. But just a little background about me. I'm based out of San Francisco Bay Area, and I head security, privacy, business continuity, and recently responsible AI for Sutherland. And happy to share our learnings as well as try to promote a conversation around how we are leveraging AI in solving some of the critical challenges that we as practitioners face. And one of the top challenges is really our threat detection, response, and how we as teams responsible for this aspect respond, and how we are going about leveraging AI in this process, right? So the AI SOC is not alien to any of you, and besides all of the use cases, this is one which has a lot of attention because we all want to solve the challenges that our teams are facing, right? So with that, I'll turn it over to Rohan first. Rohan, if you could please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Anurana. Hi, all. Nice to be here. Rohan Singla. I'm the CISO, head of IT, and responsible for AI governance at ChargePoint. Look forward to the conversation. Pankaj, over to you.
Pankaj.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for Suraksha Catalyst for inviting us to this panel, and I'm looking forward to that. So a little bit about myself. I actually manage a SOC in one of the largest electric utility in New Jersey. And we are actually in a very heavy regulatory environment. So I think we're going to talk about that when we discuss all these challenges, which Anurana actually just mentioned, and hopefully we'll get something out of this discussion. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vibhav. I'm one of the co-founders and CTO here at Prophet Security. We've built an agentic SOC platform, really aiming to be a force multiplier for security operations teams. Very excited to be here this morning and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. So as you see, we have both sides of the aisle represented here. We have a provider with Profit and team building a strong AI soft platform, which also is now agentic in its operations, as well as it solves many of the challenges that practitioners on the other side are facing. So why don't we get started with just first trying to articulate what are the biggest challenges that SOC leaders like Pankaj and Rohan are facing. So why don't I turn it over to you, Pankaj, first to kind of lay it out in simple practitioner words. What are the challenges that you guys are facing, your teams are facing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think before I mention something, I want to just put out a disclaimer here that I will not be presenting my company today on this webinar. I'm just providing my insights as a practitioner myself, and wherever I need to refer my company, I will do so. But these are just my opinions, and I'm not representing my company in any way or fashion today. So I think the challenges that I just pointed out, like in a very heavy regulatory environment like electric and gas utilities and other critical infrastructure companies, you might be familiar with that. There are 16 critical infrastructure companies as governed by DHS. And most of these companies have to comply with a lot of regulations. And whenever practitioners like myself they get excited about the new technologies that the companies have to offer, we always have to take a step back and look into that how is going to impact our industry overall. Is AI at a place where it can replace analysts, or it can augment analysts, or it can create some issues that we were actually not aware of? So that's on a high level, actually, the challenges that we face today. But I definitely see there's a future for AI. Nobody can deny that. So nobody can run away from that. That's coming, whether you accept it or not, is going to take over. So I think I always say that I think analysts who will be replaced by AI will be the ones who do not actually use AI today in their day-to-day activities.
So just wanted to bring focus a little bit, Pankaj, on the operational aspects as well. That is like we always hear about burn. We always hear about long hours for our analysts in the SOC. We always face challenge in keeping our SOCs fully staffed with the right kind of skills as well. We always wonder whether or not they are able to actually go out and look at the overwhelming amount of data, right? Some of those pieces, if you can just from a practical perspective, from your experience in the trenches, tell us what are the real challenges that SOCs are facing as well, besides, of course, the regulatory part that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think you pointed out the greatest headache for the SOC team, which is the burnout. So a lot of alerts that come in, and I think AI plays a really big role in that part, because when we deal with a lot of data, which is somewhat structured, semi-structured, and completely unstructured data, and when you combine that data into one platform, it is very difficult to actually make sense of any of this. So without AI helping in that kind of data, that is massive amount of data, millions of alerts coming in, and then you have to actually pick something that would actually require some sort of response from the analyst. That's a big challenge today. So another thing that I always tell my team as well is AI is definitely good and will become good in finding needles in the haystack. However, humans are still good at knowing which needles matters the most. So I think that's a critical piece that I think that's yet to be solved by AI. And I'm pretty sure that it will get there eventually. But it's like saying that if Tesla says that their car can go unsupervised from place A to place B, do you really need that kind of technology, or you can drive yourself. I think those are the aspects I think will go along the way, and will actually, without having that kind of a problem, you can't find a solution. So every organization, every team will have its own issues, and that can definitely be solved by AI, and somewhat, and some maybe not.
Sure. Rohan, you want to add to it? Essentially, the question for you is,
The
in your view,
challenges.
the biggest problem that we are facing in the SOC?
Yeah, so let me start with the challenges, and more so, the risks from a CISO landscape. When SOC is very important as part of my security setup, right? It is one of the most important pillar. When you come to SOC, in most cases, either my prevention controls have failed, or a fraudster or a hacker has been able to bypass my prevention controls. That is when the SOC gets activated. So which is where it makes the SOC team very critical to the entire ecosystem from a security perspective, right? One of my biggest fear as a CISO is, are we catching all the alerts which are critical enough or which have high value, right? Now, when I say a critical alert, it does not mean an alert which is marked as critical. In most cases, a low alert event can turn out to be a critical event, right? So and you don't want your SOC analyst saying, oh, this is a low alert or a medium alert. How do you triage it? How do you correlate it with other events from, level 2, level 3? So that's obviously one of the fears and challenges. How do you correlate? What kind of talent do you have, right? And talent can vary. As Pankaj is talking about, right? There are 16 critical sectors from a DHS perspective, and there are a lot of companies which are CIS. We are one of them as well. The risk appetite and the talent knowledge is very different for every company, right? So what is good for me might not be good for someone else, or what is good for a small enterprise might not be good for me, right? And we tend to, in the SOC team, I feel there's a lot of churn in analysts as well, right? When I say churn, it is probably 2 to 3 years. The analyst might stay around with a company for 2 years and then they move to another company. So what they might have learned from one company, they'll bring it to another one. But as I mentioned, the risk appetite is very different. The ecosystem is very different. And for us, a low risk alert is not a low risk alert. Everything needs to be looked at, which is one of the challenges I have with a lot of MDRs I work with, right? So for an MDR, for them, a low risk or a medium risk is not as critical, but for us it is, and which is where we have to train them, we have to work with them on SOPs. So yes, the people thing we've spoken about as a challenge. The scale, right? The scale of your environment is another big challenge. How big is your environment? How many uh, applications do you have, right? You might have a small set of employees, but you have connectors, APIs with third-party applications, third-party companies. That makes it a much bigger challenge from a management perspective. And then do you have the right processes and the right documentation? If you don't have those, your SOC team will keep fighting on a fire every morning or every day as they go along. So those are some of the challenges at a very high level.
Wonderful. No, I think you kind of brought it all together pretty well, Rohan. So before I turn it to Vibha, kind of give us a view from how did they start identifying the biggest problems to start working on an AI solution for a SOC. I will just kind of summarize what we have picked up so far, and then go to the solution side of things, right? So SOC is critical, as Rohan clearly brings up, right? It is the hub of your response and threat detection and response element. We are all facing burnout, we face churn, and we are also finding it challenging to find the right skills to staff. So the people problem exists. Then it's a question of scale. Scale both in terms of data, like Pankaj brought up, as well as scale in terms of the apps or the APIs and connectors that Rohan brought up as well, right? And most importantly is the context, right? What is a risk appetite for a particular company? What is low versus high versus critical? What is material versus non-material? In one case, maybe important in another one, right? So the context around the ecosystem, about the organizational business, which is also changing very fast because of AI. So there has to be literally a systemic way for the SOC to know the context of every user, every action, and then decide whether it's critical or not, right? So those are the broad areas. And then Rohan also pointed to the process and playbooks elements of things, right? So is the SOC by itself, without AI itself, mature enough to have the right processes? And now you kind of overlay the AI elements in it, right? So that's broadly the sense of problem, and we all are living it. And many people here who are here are probably also living it, and there may be a couple more. But let me turn it to Vibhav. Vibhav, you guys decided to pick up this very critical and very vital area for all of us. And when you were doing that, what is the problem scape that kind of resonated and came up to the top? Why don't you start with that, and then we head towards the solution?
Yeah, thank you, Anurana. I think both Rohan and Pankaj articulated their challenges very well. When we started this journey, we spoke to probably close to 100, if not more, CISOs and security leaders before we wrote a line of code. And I think there were maybe 4 structural challenges or constraints that kept emerging in these conversations. I think one, which Rohan touched on, is really the shortage of talent, the shortage of security talent, whether that be shorter tenures, whether that be burnout, whether that be due to other constraints that kept coming up in many of our conversations. The limits to operational scalability, difficulty in scaling SOC operations through manual processes without necessarily increasing headcount. It became very clear that just throwing more headcount at the problem was not sufficient. This also came up earlier, concern around blind spots. Are we investigating all the alerts that we need to be investigating? Many SOCs, whether they be outsourced or in-house, use alert severities as kind of the basic triage or filtering mechanism. But as Rohan was pointing out, something that starts off as a low or a medium might actually be indicative of something, more concerning. And so the ability for these SOCs to handle all their alert volume kept coming up. And last was just around dissatisfaction with MDRs and MSSPs, whether that be the context, whether that be cost, whether that be speed and responsiveness. There just was a growing dissatisfaction where we thought the use of AI might be able to solve some of those problems.
While we all understand that AI use cases are on everybody's mind, right? So there are AI use cases in GRC. There are AI use cases in the EDR part. We've seen them actually, mature pretty well. There are AI use cases in correlation on the network and cloud security side of things, on application security. So anything which is runtime is seeing a lot of application of AI, right? But now, from a SOC perspective, right? Why is AI critically important? We heard from the problem side of things, right? I want to now turn it to the other side and say, all right, from a solution side of things, why is AI? What does AI do much better, which makes it a really suitable use case for us to solve?
Yeah, great point. There's certainly a lot of hype around AI, some of it warranted, some of it less so. But I think there are really, 3 objectives that we're able to deliver, or I believe AI enables in a SOC. One is just around operational efficiency. I do think the O in SOC is operations, and we need to think a little bit about what does operational efficiency mean to a SOC. I mentioned earlier around how do we enable how do we be a force multiplier for security operations teams? And I think whether that be metrics, whether that be MTTR, MTTI, that security operations leaders are using to measure how effective their SOC is, whether that be detection coverage, how many detections are being investigated in a given week, in a given month. I think that's very important from an efficiency perspective. I think second is around context. I think the point of context is really important. We hear this time and time again from MDRs and MSSPs that they simply treat every customer as another, let's say, cow in the barn, and they don't necessarily have a deep understanding of the individual organization, the tribal knowledge, what makes each security operations team different, and what their needs are. And so the ability for us to contextualize our investigations and response is really enabled by AI in a way that wasn't possible before. I think we've seen the limitations of playbooks and other, more traditional automation solutions, and I think those have been insufficient. And I think last is around cost. I think we're really able to deliver, better outcomes at a far more effective cost structure than traditional MSSPs and MDRs can offer. Those are human-driven models, and I think they have very challenging cost structures. And as we think about cost, I think it becomes more cost effective to bring this in-house and use AI instead of having a human-driven MDR run all of this for you.
Understood. Now, I'm just going to paint another picture and then have Rohan and Pankaj to first give their experience on this. What's happening is every company has a functioning SOC, right? And now most of these SOC providers or SIEM providers or the MDR providers themselves are also bringing in some level of AI-based automation, right? And some level of AI-based support. So with that, how have you navigated that aspect, firstly, on your readiness to bring in the AI augmentation into the SOC or look at a fresh solution into the SOC? What are the considerations that go into your mind when you are looking at it? Once you two cover, I can also cover from my experiences as to what we saw as well. So Rohan, you want to go first on this one? I know you're actively in pursuit of things like this.
Yes, no, some good points. For me, AI, irrespective of SOC, what is AI bringing to us today? It is bringing us scale, speed, and eventually the AI cost will go down, right? Right now, obviously, AI is not as affordable as we would like it to be, but eventually it will go down. Now, in the context of SOC, we might have an argument where AI SOC is a bit cheaper compared to MDRs, but that is what AI is bringing to all of us. So we started looking out for AI SOC solutions because obviously there was a big hype around AI SOC, and logically it makes sense where you have systems triaging on behalf of level one analysts, and it helps us prioritize the findings. So that is how we started looking out for AI SOC solutions. One of the problems or things that we ran into is I did not feel personally that the AI SOC is mature enough for us to replace MDR, because that is where we were thinking of replacing our MDRs with an AI SOC. And more AI SOC companies we met, it was pretty clear that this solution is not mature at this stage. It might get to a maturity where companies are comfortable replacing MDRs, or even today maybe. But that goes back to the company maturity level, as I was talking in the first point, right? And I'm sure vendors might come up and say we have enterprises who are replacing MDRs with AI SOC. But given our maturity level and our risk appetite, we were not ready. And I personally feel more and more vendors I talk to, all of them are becoming an MDR plus AI SOC, right? Everyone started off with an AI SOC solution, but now they're adding an MDR service that is probably to give the security professionals some comfort around, the thought process. So that is one. And why were we looking at AI SOC? I mentioned about scale, the speed as well, which was very critical for us. Identifying the issues, not waiting for minutes or hours before someone pings my SOC team or pings us that an issue, an alert is there, and then we start the incident response process. So how can we bring it from hours to seconds or minutes to seconds, whatever it might be? And then fast eventually, right, which Webber spoke about as well.
Pankaj, you want to add to that? Those are pretty pertinent points. Scale and speed. Yeah, I think Rohan continues to focus a lot on that. You brought about maturity, whether it's mature to replace the SIEM or existing SIEM or even your MDA provider, and the switch that he's seeing. Pankaj, are you seeing something similar or different?
Yeah, I think first of all, I mean, you brought up a really great point on most of the MDR vendors have started using AI themselves, whether we like it or not, whether we adopt it or not. And I think I share a lot of similar concerns that Rohan brought up in a company such as ours. And I'm part of our responsible AI council in my company. And I have been actually reviewing and approving some of the AI solutions that other functions have been bringing into us, without realizing that eventually our own vendors gonna start bringing those AI into their tools and including MDRs. So we are seeing that already. It's happening. And I think the one aspect of that is whether they are using AI or not, there's still humans are involved in that. So they are not fully replacing the AI, their analysts or their SOC team with AI. So we still rely on humans to provide us what they are seeing. The humans are still investigating a lot of novel type of attacks and 0 days, which a lot of AI actually fail today, at least, to detect those because there are no TTPs mapped to it, because probably the training that their models have gone through may not be able to kind of fully detect those areas. And those things are real. Like we see this all the time, even today, that when a new 0 day comes in, a lot of actually companies rely on their scanners that do they have plugins for that, and they have to wait for this plugin so that they can scan their environment. While other EDRs, they look for some kind of detection methodology that they may not even have seen it or may not have put it into their AI modeling or training yet. So it's all of a catch-up game. So, and we have yet to see at least one incident. Yes, there are numerous kind of prototypes out there that claim that they were able to replicate the entire attack using AI. Claude actually came up with that, one of the attacks was replicated just based on their AI model. Now, we have not seen yet that a fully attack was perpetrated using AI, and I sincerely doubt that AI modelings or AI tools are ready yet to kind of detect those type of things that come at a scale in most of the companies, whether it's a drive-by type of attack or very large type of supply chain attack. So those are real scenarios that I think companies like ours are not fully ready for that yet today. But in future, I'm pretty sure the AI will get better and better those days.
Absolutely. And 𝗥𝗲𝗶𝗺, you want to add something?
Just saying, fingers crossed. AI will get better, and
Fingers
we will
crossed.
be in a space where AI SOC will replace a lot of the MDR stuff we do, or manual
Yeah.
stuff we do. Yeah.
Yeah. And as Pankaj and Rohan were talking, I could see Vibhav almost, literally preparing himself to counter each of these points. And we're going to get to that, Vibhav, for sure. And I'm sure that's the whole dialogue about, right? So we as practitioners are facing our own constraints, right, to adopt a new technology, right? And those are genuine reasons. And people here have been very candid in sharing what their reasons are. And I'll share from my perspective as well. So we had recently moved to an advanced SIEM solution, and we have an MDR provider as well who's leveraging a lot of AI, a lot of data science to even gather context as well as make sure that all of the points that we are talking about can be addressed. The dissatisfaction elements of MDR, they are trying to solve it through data science themselves, through a lot of AI themselves, right? So that's sitting on top of the AI, which is already being created by the SIEM providers, because they've got to be at the cutting edge, because that's where the data is funneling in, there's querying happening, and there's response times of what the alerts are being picked up, right? So already that's a very high bar. And on top of that, we've got our MDR provider bringing in a lot of that data science, right? So therefore, in a scenario like this, and along comes an AI SOC provider, and we have a conversation, and I'm trying to see where do they fit, right? And the same conversations we've had with some of the members here. So I will turn this question over to Vibhav. He's talking to many people like us, and I'm sure he's got a pulse of what really is working, where AI SOC is getting the adoption, and what is not working as well. Vibha?
Yeah, thanks, Anurana. I think great points. I love the healthy skepticism. I think the industry needs it for sure. So appreciate you letting me respond there. I think there's maybe a couple points I'd like to make. One is somewhat of a false dichotomy. I do believe AI SOC is a tool in our toolkit. And it can be leveraged in different ways. There are different organizations, as Pankaj and Rohan have pointed out, have different constraints, that they have different operating models. Regulated industries have other restrictions that they need to abide by. And so I think it's important not to forget that these tools can be leveraged in different ways. I think at the end of the day, fundamentally we're looking to provide decision support to analysts who are somewhat overworked and spread thin, and we're trying to make sure that we're giving them the information they need as quickly as possible. And whether, going back to the Tesla analogy, you want to put the car on cruise control or whether you want to put the car on full self-driving is somewhat of a decision that each organization should be able to make. And I think that's one of the things that we hear from our customers on Arana is the ability for the platform to operate in different modes, the ability for them to leverage AI where they're comfortable on that AI adoption life cycle is, I think, really, really important. And so I don't know if it's an all or nothing proposition, or if we have to make this a battle between MDR and AI SOC. I think there are different ways in which the technology can be leveraged. Second thing, if I may quickly add to that, is we're seeing a lot of adoption across our customer base of customers who have dissatisfaction with MDR for all the reasons we've talked about, but are perhaps not sure, right? And it's a big leap to make to move to a tool like ours. And I'll give you all an anecdote. We have a customer that was evaluating us alongside their MDR. We were running concurrently, looking at the same alerts that their detection engine or detection sources were generating. And there was an example that they shared with us, an example of a malicious incident. We escalated it in about 55 seconds to their team, speaking about speed and MTTR. And that same incident took the MDR, and this is a tier 1 MDR, close to 11 hours to escalate. And I think that's just in a nutshell, really the power of AI SOC here, that I think speaks to all the things we've spoken about: the speed, the context, the ability for us to not only enable these analysts, but give them the decision support they need in a fairly expedient fashion so that they can respond appropriately.
Yeah, I'll probably just add, right? I agree with Vibha over here. In today's day and age, if any SOC team is not making use of AI, that is a problem in itself. Now, I'm not saying AI SOC should replace everything, but you need to make use of it either as part of your internal team or as your MDRs are using it, right? I would expect my MDRs to be using AI. If they are not, then it is time for us to change our MDRs because it has to be used. Yeah, you can't scale up without AI in today's day and age.
I think that kind of is a good segue for us to also have Gurdeep's help in running a small poll, right? How many of you are looking at MDRs and re-questioning it, or placing them, or just a good way for us to get a quick pulse of what the industry is looking at? So Gurdeep, if you can run the poll as well in parallel while we get to some of the fantastic questions that we are getting from the audience as well.
Sounds good.
All right, so you've got the poll. Please go ahead and vote for it. It will be useful for all of us to get collectively how we are looking at these few things as well. Thank you, Gurdeep. And I think thanks to all of our participants who are bringing in some fantastic questions here. And rather than trying to solve for some of the questions that I had in my mind, I'm thinking let's get to some of those. So we have a question from Ishwarya Narayanan, and his question is about speed and AI friction sometimes acting as a counterbalance, which is really healthy in some cases. But his question really is that if we have to categorize some of the areas which we can work on, the response actions, for example, which we can take to fully autonomous, which he's calling green zones, versus a human in the loop, human authorized red zone kind of things, right? So how would we do that? And how often would we reevaluate these boundaries as models? So maybe I'll turn this to 𝗏𝗏 first, while Rohan and Pankaj can think about how they would view this question. It's a very good, interesting way to look at things. 𝗏𝗏?
Yeah, no doubt. I see this almost every day, Anurana, across our customers. Many of them who start with appropriate skepticism. I remind my team that we're in a trust building exercise with our customers, and it takes time for us to build trust with them. And so customers start off, with their hands on the steering wheel, if you will, and they're still making sure that the human is in the loop, but they're using the AI for decision support, using the AI to reduce those MTTRs, improve operational efficiency. But as they use the product, as they start seeing the decision making, as they start seeing, the types of analysis that product is able to provide, we see a natural progression where they start taking their hands off the steering wheel, where they say, I trust this. And it might be in a few types of alerts. It might be for a specific investigation type. It might be for areas that, are low risk. And over time, they build more and more trust. And I think it's a very natural process. And I encourage our customers to kind of go through that progression. We're not asking them to change their processes, their workflows, which they've invested in, but use this as a way to enable and accelerate what's already there.
Right. Rohan or Pankaj, any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead, Pankaj.
I think, yes. So I think what my understanding is what Ishwar is implying is there is a concept in AI called grounding, built on RAG architecture. So grounding basically provides a scope within that AI modeling and training that what exactly that AI response would be. So if you are using AI for everything, that obviously is not really a good way of looking at AI. So grounding helps you to provide that scope that what AI is capable of and the responses that you get that will be within that kind of a scope. So that I'm assuming that is what's called the green zone in his question. And then the red zone would be where if you're using the RAG architecture, which is the retrieval augmented generation architecture, so that basically goes out like the AI, if you ask the question of that, it will actually fetch that data on the internet to get to the response that you are looking for. And if that is getting that data from outside on the internet, that has to be validated by humans. So that should be the red zone area where the AI is actually providing a response to the best of its ability and the training that it has gone through. But then humans are verifying on top of it, as Gurdeep used to say, always trust but verify, right? So, and this is a very critical point in our industry. We cannot trust blindly what we are seeing, what we are hearing. We always have to verify and validate those things. So I think those are the good, important points that AI still has to come up with, and it has the ability to do this. It's just to the customers how well they want to trust that software versus humans to get to that point where they want to be.
And I think it's also relevant to what 𝗏𝗏 was mentioning as trust building exercise. So it will vary from company to company, and your comfort with what you are seeing as valid actions on part of AI. Slowly saying, all right, we could potentially move this to semi-autonomous first, and then see how it goes, and then move it to autonomous as well eventually for maybe lower risk ones, and then go for the different ones as well. It's Rohan, you were saying something.
No, I think I agree with Pankaj, actually. He's put it well.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Ishwarya. I hope that answered your question. Let's get to the next one from Srijesh, who's specifically reaching out for Rohan to answer this one. So, Rohan, how are you prioritizing among the important alerts if everything which is low is also equally important for you? It's a good question.
Yeah, so it's probably around context, right? So low alert events, when I say there's nothing low, what I mean is when a system gives you a low CVE or an alert type, to give you an example, right? Say a user has logged in into Okta from their personal laptop. and the cookies are stolen, the persistent cookies are stolen, uh, that will come up probably as a low or a medium risk alert on your SOC from Okta, right? Based on that. But imagine if that cookies are used to log in and do a session mimic, right? Someone logs into your session using those cookies. That is a critical event. That is a breach at that stage. Not a breach, but a hack, right? Someone's gotten into your Okta environment. So the low risk event has turned out into a critical event. And when I say that, what I mean is the low risk event cannot be just looked into an isolation saying we'll get to it at a later date. You need to correlate it, you need to triage it and understand what is the impact of this low risk event. So yes, we cannot get to every low risk event as well because there are thousands of them. But how do you prioritize within those low risk events is what we need to look into. And what is the impact of every alert or event? Uh, and which is where I am hoping AI SOC or AI can help us uh, augment it with humans.
I think where I have seen as well, one of the key benefits is really helping build context and retain that context, right? And I go back to my air combat days. When you were going into enemy territory, you had to build up and maintain situational awareness. Where am I? What's my heading? What's my height? What's my field state? Where are my other buddies or other members of the formation? So you've got to maintain that situational awareness. And that translated to our environment is context, right? What is the context of this person's role, this person, whether he's moved from one position to the other, whether this action is appropriate to this situation or no, and things like that. So it's about that situational awareness which I'm translating to context, right? And that's where AI can play a very big role as well to support what Rohan was also saying. Then in that case, that low, issue, but in that environment, in that context, it becomes a critical piece and it's positioned in that manner. And eventually, it is also trying to go beyond just the classification and say, well, this is low, but I'm escalating this to a higher because of the context, right? Things like that. Right. Okay. I do have another question, which again is very interesting from Sai. Could you talk a little bit more about how AI can be used in an actual investigation and coming through log events and things like that, right? I think that's where the rubber meets the road. And I have seen some phenomenal results from threat hunting, threat hunts as well, and investigations as well. So let's start with the investigation part first, and then potentially we can move to the threat hunt part as well as a second question. Vibha, you want to go first, and then we can turn it to our other colleagues. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a great question. I've been chomping at the bit to answer it. I think it's a really great point. I want to emphasize that it's not just the initial, let's say, triage, as Sai is suggesting, but it's actually the investigation process that I think is where the most value is seen. The goal is really for us to emulate the investigative process that an analyst goes through, almost the detective work that they have to perform when an alert happens, whether that be understanding the initial alert, whether that be gathering additional context, as we were just discussing, as to what happened around that time. What do we know about this individual? What is typical activity for that principal? All of this is that investigative process. And I think that AI can be really valuable in making sure that each of these investigations is actually being prosecuted at the highest quality, making sure that each of these alerts is being looked at very thoroughly. And I think that's where the value is, more so than just the initial triage. I think as all of you look at tools and solutions out there, I kind of encourage you to look at the investigative depth that is available. I think that initial filter is fine. Anyone can, I think, build a quick prototype, but the ability for SI is asking for us to go deeper and look at what an individual alert is, or how an individual alert is being investigated is probably most important. There's one last part to it as well, which is not just the investigation, but as Anurana was saying earlier, it's also the remediation or response actions And so once an investigation is complete, assuming that there is, confirmed malicious behavior, we probably want to take action as quickly as possible. And putting aside, the risk and trust we talked about a moment ago, AI is also really valuable in the remediation process, being able to take the steps to contain or block the activity that we're seeing.
This takes me to some of the actual incidents that we handled a couple of years, over the last couple of years at scale. The challenge is when you start the investigation with one account takeover, which you have picked up by accident or some other ways, right? And you've kind of now stumbled upon it, and an analyst has picked it up. And now the CISO is asking this question, okay, what else? How big is this, right? Now that would take you hours, if not days, to really get a reasonable answer to that, right? I would ask the SOC, and it would take a lot of querying, a lot of thinking, a lot of cross-questioning first to arrive at what are we trying to find out, and then how will we find that out. Now this part with AI can really happen very fast, and if there are smart solutions, they would automatically surface this question from me, which I will ask my analysts otherwise, right? So what else? Second, so what, right? How critical is it? What all is it impacting? Has something really happened already? Is some service already down because of this? All of those aspects. What else? So what? And what now, right? That means the response part then comes up as well. So I think there is merit in AI solving for giving these answers to these questions much faster and much better, right? Much deeper, as Vibhu was saying as well. All right, so let's go to Bala's question. He says, today's AI models have limitations in processing instructions, struggling with complex or high volume constraint. Do you believe, Vibhu, that current AI systems can do MDR, which requires complex and high volume instruction processing?
Again, another great question. I think what Bala is getting at is a really important point that I think it's important to understand a little bit about the architecture of these models and understand, even if at a high level, what the transformer architecture means, what that looks like. We talk about different model families, different limitations, context windows, but there are some fundamental limitations to how these models operate. They are fundamentally stochastic systems, and I think expecting determinism from a stochastic system is a fool's errand. And so Bala, I would say the answer is yes, it is doable, but you have to go one level deeper. Rather than just saying AI, understanding how the AI is being used, what is the architecture of the system, which elements are deterministic, which are not. I think it's important to take a closer look at how these different providers are using AI in order to understand, to your point, if they're able to handle both the complexity and the scale that I think high volume, high scale SOCs require.
Right.
Yeah, as far as I understand, right, models today are not designed to be deterministic or make real-time decisions, right? Which is what you see your MDRs to do, or what you see they're up to. I expect my MDR to help me make real-time decisions along with my teams. Additionally, we are feeding in millions and billions of alerts and data into our SIM tools today, right? These are raw logs. Models are probably not ready to ingest all that in billions, right? So you need data which is filtered, which is summarized from a SIM into an alert category, which then the models can probably correlate. So yes, to answer Bala's question, I think those two should probably summarize it. Can a model replace like for like what an MDR does today? Probably not. It has to be augmented. You need a human to help you make decisions. And then how do you feed billions of raw log alerts or events?
Yeah, I would say two things
Um,
there, Rohan. I'd say one is just shoving logs into a model is maybe a cool parlor trick, but it is not a robust enterprise solution. I completely agree with you there, and I think the role which we and other maybe AI SOC providers provide is to build all the infrastructure around that as well. I think that's the difference between a demo and an enterprise product. I would say one other thing though, which is even MDRs themselves have fairly, I'll say, probabilistic processes because it's dependent on the analyst. As humans, we are also probabilistic. We're not machines.
Correct.
Hate to break it to everyone. I think that's the reality that we have some squishy gray matter in between our two ears. So we're as probabilistic as I think it gets, and I think it's important to realize that the baseline is not pure determinism either.
Excellent. I think we are reaching towards the end of the session, and I would like to use the last part to just capture the key takeaways for our team members. And actually, also, I want to throw in one last question for all the panelists here, potentially including myself here as well, as to what is that one takeaway you want to give to the participants here around how you personally are keeping up with the pace of AI evolution in security, right? It's a challenge, right? Both, I'm sure, Vibhav and team face this every day from a solution point of view. We are seeing the space evolve. So let's start with that, and post that we will just quickly summarize and then also have the poll results once again flashed as well. So Vibhav, you want to start with that, followed by Rohan and Pankaj?
Yeah, it almost feels like a full-time job, Anurana, to keep up with everything going on. I wish I had a great answer for you. What I've come to realize is the space is moving so quickly. There's so much happening. It's really a Cambrian explosion in terms of just tools and models. And I think just this week I was reading about the new Kimi model, which came out. And I think really the only answer I have is we have to keep experimenting. We're on very fast-moving ground. Nothing has set in stone. And we have to keep playing with these tools, keep challenging our assumptions, even things that I think were taken as best practices 6, 9, 12 months ago have completely changed in the last few months. I myself have been trying to get my hands dirty, using these tools, really seeing what our customers are expecting in terms of agentic applications. So I think I just encourage everyone to play with everything going on. It's the best way to understand and familiarize yourself with the fast-moving
This is great.
space.
Great point. Keep experimenting, challenge assumptions, challenge your own understanding of what these tools can do. Rohan?
Yeah, from a learning perspective, right? Totally agree with Vibhav. You can't be a bystander. You have to adopt it, you have to accept it, and trial and error is the best way to learn more about it. As I said at the start, we have to adopt AI, right? If we don't, we'll become obsolete. So AI is here to stay, AI is here to grow, right? Where I am, there was an interesting question around red and green, right? That was more from a RAG model perspective, but that is life as well. We are trying to go from red to green, but we are somewhere, at least I am somewhere in the middle where I'm at amber. I need humans and AI together for my SOC. Eventually the goal and the hope is we go towards green with limited humans, but I feel that is some time away.
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, I feel that I completely agree with Vibhav and Rohan from their own perspectives as well. And there used to be a buzzword that we keep hearing for many, many years now. It's probably decades by now. Is MLAI. MLAI used to be very common in every single solution that vendors used to provide. And I think we are at a stage where every single solution now coming up with AI to begin with. And I think there are different types of AIs, like what actually the problem that you are facing, and there is a corresponding like AI solution to that. But for the most part, I think one of the Tesla's former director actually said that English has become now the new code language, right? So that's where I think rubber meets the road because prompt engineering is the key part in learning AI. Because if you're not prompting the solution well, it's not going to generate the answer well. If you are not using the training or the model that you are choosing has not been trained well enough, then that's also going to be very challenging. So I think AI is here. AI is not going anywhere. It's going to get just better and better. and I'm looking forward to that future.
Hey,
Excellent.
thank
Excellent
you
point
so
there,
much.
Pankaj. Yeah, those are wonderful. In fact, I
Yeah.
would just add to that point. First thing when we started to use ChatGPT was there's a prompt engineer GPT. So you should use that. It really helps you refine the prompt and get you much better results as well. So, Gudi, can we just
Right.
flash the
Yep. Yep.
results? And I
So
also
let's
want
flash
to
the results. And also, I know we are at the almost at the top of the hour. Great insights from here. And one thing we all are happy to see, no one said that no change is coming. So definitely everyone is embracing the change in a positive manner. And of course, and there was a question that was asked earlier that is, Vaibhav, that you answered, that Prophet is the whole new SIM, or can you add that on to the EDR? And your response was, hey, you can, right? So that's where I think we need to go. And great insights. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I would just take another 30 seconds to share my screen and make sure you all can see, because I want to make sure that you all are. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Upcoming events. There will be a webinar next month towards the end of February, but then we have a CISO town hall, and then we are all getting ready for the Indo-US Cybersecurity Conclave 2026 alongside RSA conference. So see you all there.